Hey y'all, Bloomberg here. Just a quick heads up to my YouTube viewers. If you happen to be catching this on Spotify, then that's awesome, but this might also be a good excuse to check out this very same episode over at BYN Productions on YouTube. Usually when I make these episodes, I like to throw something on the screen just so you have something to look at other than a blank screen. However, the guest of this episode is not only a very talented player, but an immensely talented artist, who I could not have afforded on my own, but was kind enough to lend her own talents to the show in more ways than one. For the duration of this episode, you will be able to see her own incredible art of the character, as well as a speed painting of that very same art. So not only will you hear and learn about this character, but you will have a chance to see her be brought to life, which is beyond cool. All of her credentials and links will be in the description below. Please check her out. She is awesome. And thank you to her again for doing this out of the kindness of her own heart. It really does mean the most. Because I mean it. I couldn't afford it. Shout out over, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Bye-bye. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 5 of the Just an Excuse podcast, where the name is the game, and the game is D&D, and it's all the characters in between. I'm your host, and the one with the perpetual need for an excuse to talk about all the things that would probably define me as clinically insane, but I love to talk about, and I am your host, Miguel Bloomberg, and I'm happy to have you back at my table. Thank you for joining me. Today, we have a very, very special guest with me. We're talking a fellow player in the Ashes of Empire campaign, which last episode we got to talk about in depth, and it was a very exciting episode. But like I said, this podcast was just an excuse for me to talk about the campaign and the characters within it, and this is another ticking of the box here, really allowing me to get in deep with one of the characters that I have really enjoyed playing alongside, and one of the players I've got to sit across the tables from. So I've had a really great time playing with her, and I'm sure we will have a great time talking about her character today. I am, of course, referring to the lovely, the talented FabledBrush. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Doing good? Not too good. Just good enough. Like I had to chain you to the desk to get you here, right? You're not.
Yeah. had to practically beg me.
Yeah, that's true. Well, like I've been talking about excuses ever since I started this thing, and it's really funny. There was way back when I was first looking to commission art for campaigns in general, I was looking for sources and stuff like that. I had never done it before, and I stumbled across a post on Reddit that was like, how do I get art of my campaign? How do I do it? And there was a comment really far down that basically said, here's what you do. You trick an artist into becoming a part of the campaign, and then you get your art right from the source. And my plot has been successful. I've snagged a very, very talented artist who was not part of the original cast Session 0, but has come in about midway through, I think, the entire arc of the campaign, and has been an absolute joy to have along the ride. If you'd please take a second to shout out your artistry. You're a phenomenal artist. You could probably describe it better than I.
Okay. Well, FabledBrush is also my name on social media. I do mainly fantasy art. Sometimes a lot of it's centered toward more medieval-based tabletop RPG, but some of it has been sourced toward sort of more supernatural modern. I've worked on mostly indie projects. So one of the most recent is Bloodlines and Black Magic. I've worked on for Ben the DM. And a lot of just a lot of small things, which has been great. I actually enjoy working indie. I don't know. There's something about when someone's creating their first sort of drawings for their special project, where they finally have a little money together and they want to really design something. That there's that special moment where you hand them the drawing and they look at it and they go, "That's what I wanted. That is bringing to life something my dream is now alive."
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, please check her out. She's amazing. She's commissioned art for me and for the campaign we're about to talk about today. It's been phenomenal. Honestly, I'll see if I can flash that up on the screens to have a little bit more visual flair. I'm branching out as we get further into this, but that out of the way, and of course, please do go check her out. We're going to talk about her character today, and that would be the bubbly, the beautiful, the wonderful, the soulful Aza'Ley. Please enjoy the following audio show. A gentle but firm hand shook Aza'Ley awake. Her eyes opened to the quiet sky as her ears picked up the sound of the low fire at her back, still crackling, casting shadows that faded into the desert night. One of her new companions loomed above her. The large gnoll, still wearing his armor, nodded to her calmly. It was time for her watch. The gnoll gestured towards a rock, clearly a makeshift seat he'd created for his watch, before taking up his own bedroll near the others. Aza'Ley watched his lumbering gait past the fire. He was clearly hiding how much pain he was in. Escaping the Molten Lord's territory had cost him dearly. He was lucky to be alive. She wanted to say something, but any attempt seemed to crumble halfway up her throat. In the end, she let him rest. Probably better this way. What would she even talk about? Topography, geology, agricultural patterns. She'd already done that, and she had the sneaking suspicion he had just been humoring her, even if he'd been the one to ask. She plopped herself down on the rock, eyes running over the 5 sleeping bodies illuminated in the flickering firelight. That feeling was still there. She'd hoped it would have been gone when she woke. An apprehension, a sinking feeling, a feeling she'd gone astray. Behind her, the sand welled up into a natural dune, only a few yards past the edge of the firelight. She had to move, had to take her mind off things, and she could still watch from there. Her mother had made her promise to be safe, that she would stay away from danger as best she could until they found each other again. She had kept it, but as days turned to weeks, then to months, then to years, Aza'Ley began to wonder if that had been the last thing she'd ever hear her say. What would she do now that it had been broken? Fear blossomed a lump in her throat, nearly overwhelming her, but Aza'Ley clamped down on it. At the dune's peak, she stood still, gazing out into the expanse. It reminded her of all those long days with her mother, all the lessons she had learned, all the stories and visions of what this land could be. After all this time, she was still amazed at its beauty. It baffled her that so few people could see what she saw, could hear the rhythm she could. But to many, this was a land of emptiness, a vast, barren nothing. But not to her. She closed her eyes, imagining herself hand in hand with the life that hid between the rocks and under the sand. She imagined herself standing vigil over the mountains, mountains slowly born from centuries of strife, pressure, and time. In her vision, she ran through the ridges and grooves of ancient rivers that may have once brought prosperity and community to this land. This place was anything but barren. It was alive, and it told a story. As that familiar rhythm of life crept back into her ears, it felt like she could see her mother again, just beyond the horizon. She imagined herself running to her, falling into her embrace and letting the loneliness melt away. She wanted to stay in that warmth forever. Then, her eyes snapped open, and the desert breeze carried the vision away. The rhythm fled like desert mice, and the silence returned without struggle. But the warmth remained. That old feeling was still there. She didn't know if she'd ever see her mother again. But now, she found this new thing flickering by its side. As she returned to her vigil by the fire, she realized she didn't need to imagine the warmth anymore, for she found it now streaming from the 5 sleeping bodies by her side. Even if she'd lost a family, she now had faith she'd found a new one. A family that could lead her home. Okay, so that was a lot of fun to work on. I'm glad that came out as well as it did. But let's hop into the nitty-gritty, shall we? So, Miss Brush, FabledBrush. I don't know. I've only ever referred to you as a PC name, so we'll kind of work around this. What would you say inspired this character? You know, me personally, music and cliches and stuff like that. There's a lot of different places that inspiration can come from a character. I know many players just sort of have that character compendium that they pull from whenever they are fortunate enough to be asked to play. I'm curious where the inspirations come from for this character in particular. Where did this come from?
Well, all my characters usually start from something I want to play. So in this case, I've played a lot of Pathfinder 1e, and this is my first Pathfinder 2e. So usually how I start is I look through and go, okay, I want to play a witch. Tick that box. I then went, I want to play an elemental character, but then I'm telling the DM, because he told me initially I could pick whatever I want, and I say, oh, I want an elemental character, and he then has not a pause, but he, I don't think there was a race in the game that matched that exactly, but he was, because the wonderful DM he is very confident that he could, that, you know, we're going to add something in, whether it's just a race that your group had not encountered yet, or what have you. He's like, go for it, we'll fit that Genasi equivalent into the world somehow. So I was like, okay. And then I'm going to have this kind of character. So then that stems into, okay, if I'm playing an elemental character who has elemental powers and is witch, I then kind of stem the backstory from there.
Mm-hmm. So it's concept and then backstory kind of comes alongside it.
Yeah, I answer myself questions to why something's going to be there, or how, for example, magic. How did she learn magic? If I'm coming into this, I was coming into the campaign pretty late, I'm already a higher level character. Where did I learn magic to be able to be at this level? Was it inherent? Was it taught? Those sort of questions. And then I slowly built the backstory. The funny thing is, though, there's huge chunks of the backstory that will never be used. Because I gave it to Fen, and it was fine. But then after the first session, he kind of came to me and went, I have an idea.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Said, I have something to pitch to you now. Now that, like, there's one session in, and there was a couple little points, a couple holes where he's now said, I think there is a really interesting way to fill them. Are you game if we're about to, like, make this massive change? And I went, yes, absolutely, let's go. So, one of the things that because you know Aza'Ley's backstory is that she's raised by a single mom. Originally, she had 2 parents. That's like one of the major changes. She had 2 parents, and like one was like a druid and one was a witch, and they were both researchers, and they were going to design an item. That was the whole backstory, and they were designing something, and then someone wanted to take that item away from them. Like this is how, and then all of that was taken and just kind of tossed away in service of something new, and with the agreement that I, to some degree, would know as much as my character, and I was fine with that. I thought that's I went.
So you're good with having a little like mystery beyond the kind of, I guess, built-in mystery of a backstory, right? Because there's always like the metagame mystery versus an actual mystery.
Oh yeah, and that's very common. A lot of my characters usually have an element of mystery built in, or in some cases, I will, like, I'll wait until after the first session, and I go to the DM and say, and sometimes I'm the one who says, I saw something, can we make these alterations? There's now and I saw an avenue now open on the horizon for us to take this in a much more integrated direction, because that's usually what I prefer. I want the character to feel like it belongs, and since this campaign was running much longer than when I had joined, it felt a lot better to make sure that the character was fitted enough in the world that, like, she'd always been there for the most part.
Right. Okay, so cool. So you coordinated with Fen. You had some ideas initially on what the vibe or the I guess the feel of the character was, and you kind of you built backstory from there. And then, but you also learned about the character, or you left holes with the character that you could come back and fill in later. I'm assuming based on the way you described it that was intentional, or was it just like, you made a character and you didn't think those holes needed to be patched over at the time, and Fen came around with an idea. It was like, we could fill it with this, and you liked that idea, because it sounds like he came to you with this approach.
He came to me with the idea, but the approach of having holes was already there. So the holes the hole that had been there since the beginning, because Aza'Ley's complete backstory is more or less learned magic from family, lived with them her whole life, and then eventually is going to have to venture out alone and have to learn to navigate the world and like entirely alone, or at least not entirely alone, but separate from the lifestyle that she had grown up in.
Yeah.
And that was already there. And the idea of her not knowing what the catalyst that causes this, so who either attacks her family or takes something from them, that was already there. That was supposed to always be there. The idea of her getting separated from her parents and told to leave, that hole was already present. The whole of us eventually finding out that of her not entirely knowing what she is, that was what Fen approached me with, because he went, he's like, you're not gonna know what your race is anymore. That was the one that he came to me with.
Okay, let me take this fundamental piece of the engine and rip it out. The car will still run, you just won't know why.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a case of he came and went, I didn't exactly write what the race-in was anyway, because I wasn't sure. The idea was I wasn't sure if he was gonna tell me later, or if it would be kind of revealed later. And at the time I was like, well, if you're this individual who only grew up with this other person, then in theory you only know this. Why would you question what you are? So I was
because that's all there is, right? There's like a kind of a sheltered element to it, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, but he was the one who went, okay, your mother's human and you are not. And he's the one who came up with you are something, and you as a player are gonna know that you are something that may not be like Ganassi or whatever, like the equivalent we were thinking about. And I was like, okay. Cool. I guess I'll find that out later. So there's been constantly a question mark on my sheet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's really fun to hear that he did that for you, because I guess this is a compliment towards Fen. He actually did something similar to me, where he did something for my character Adia that I was not expecting to do at all, but actually fit in with the concept of her arc really, really well. I think back before you joined the campaign, when we were doing, you've heard about the escapades we did down south of like freeing a city every once in a while. It comes up. And one of the things that happened at the end of the arc was that was the first time Adia met her stepmother again in the canon of the story. And she was kind of just existing there. She wasn't super involved in the events because she's an elf. She's like otherworldly. But one of the last things her stepmother said to her as she was literally leaving to wrap up the arc was just like, your power is going to kill you, right? And that wasn't something like me or Fen had not discussed this. Fen just threw that out there. like for fun, just for fun. And then it basically, after like having an emotional moment, like a session or two later, Fen comes around and goes, okay, here's how your powers work. And it was really cool. Like she can sacrifice hit points to buff spells, but that's a sacrifice on hit point maximum. And it played into her character so interestingly, but it's another moment. It's cool to see that he's done it for other players too, where he took a space and he used it to throw something at you that you didn't expect at all. And I think that's a testament to him being a very good DM. But it's also, I've always think that's a really cool thing to do in general, because it really makes it feel like a DM didn't just take your character idea or your backstory and kind of just file it away, under character backstory. Like, it feels like that's someone who is looking at your backstory and feeling the intention behind it and seeing ways that can be elevated, Like, he's not just sitting on it, he's actively pursuing that intention or that drama. I think that's really cool. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I hope it's interesting that it's like, this is not a one-off thing. He's done this more than once.
Oh no, I definitely feel the same way. I also feel, because I've done this I've had this happen in more than one campaign, which has all been grand, all great DMs. And then I've also utilized that myself as a DM too.
Oh, you've DM'd? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I have done 2 campaigns entirely to completion and
is to completion like just as far as it goes? Like, because to me, this campaign, when it goes to completion, I imagine we'll be hitting something between like 110 and 140 sessions. Like, what was to completion for you?
It was, it's entirely to completion is the narrative entirely finishes. There is for the most part, an ending. All the characters have reached the end of their arcs, and the main narrative has concluded.
Okay, cool.
That's what I would consider to like a completion. Everyone's agreed. We are done. We said the words "the end," and we have moved on from it. And both campaigns are about 2 years and a half.
Wow. Well, that's really cool to hear, because this campaign that we're talking about actually is my longest campaign ever. I think before this, I've mentioned this before, I had been in maybe like 1 or 2 official, like, played to, I guess, narrative completion campaigns. And those were like between like 10 and 30 sessions. So this is like the longest campaign I've ever done. And I've had a great time, but it's cool to see, because, and this isn't a knock on like campaigns with shorter session counts, but it often feels like conclusions more or less have to be rushed and finished in certain campaigns, just because of the fact that, we're not going to be meeting again this semester, or blah, 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 other reasons of, life and happenstance that just kind of have to kind of nudge the campaign to a close, maybe a little faster than you'd like. But it feels really cool to be a part of a session that's really played out to a much more natural, fulfilling conclusion, at least so far. So this is really cool for me, and it goes to show how inexperienced I am with this game. Like, I have not played anywhere near as much as some other people I know, and it shows very hardly. But anyway, so moving forward to another question about the character. You kind of touched on this a little bit just in the discussion of what inspired the character and how it kind of came to be. But so I'll ask a little bit more explicitly to kind of spell it out a little bit more. What were the goals behind this character when you made it? Like, I've talked to people who have said they wanted to just be a piece of the world that was very immersed. I've talked to other people who had like entire arcs in mind. Like, for example, when I wrote up Adia, obviously I wanted to have her baked into the world. I like having characters with verisimilitude. But I also had an idea of where I wanted her arc to kind of go. I had an end point and a finish point. It was the journey in between that's obviously going to matter. But that's how I tend to make my characters. I give them a problem, and I want them to try and fix that problem or get more or less problems along the way. Did you have a goal for Aza'Ley when you made her? Did you have an arc in mind? You kind of touched on that leaving home for the first time story a bit. I'm curious if there's a more express intention behind her.
Yes. Well, so usually when I create a character, like in their initial concepts, I create them with a want and a need in mind. Mm-hmm. And that's more important and more fluid as the campaign goes on. So usually the want is something that initially the character is going to drive my character to continue the campaign, because I think that's really important, or you can kind of run into an issue where you're not sure what to do with your own character.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm usually going, so for Aza'Ley, it was very much, she actually kind of wanted company. She wants her mother at her core, but she wants company. So to give the complete backstory a little bit better, because I've only touched on it here and there. So Aza'Ley's a young adult. Both me and her didn't know that she had this mysterious race going on, or heritage. And she grows up most of her life with just her mother, who is this magical researcher. And her mother's main focus is on magic, is on utilizing magic for the purposes of trying to kind of balance the natural world. Mostly trying to create more accessible elemental magic to sort of preserve and terraform the barren land, because while reading Fenn's, campaign doc, I was like, oh, that's a big part of this world, that this world is mostly been scarred by many, many years of whatever disaster had happened in the past. So I was like, what if there's someone who's dedicated to, I want to find a way past this disaster. I want to find a way, to make sustainable resources because that would create thriving communities. You can either create big nations, but if there's nothing to support those nations, then it doesn't matter. So that's been her mom's whole thing, and then Aza'Ley's grown up with that. She's been taught magic from watching her mom. She's learned about nature, and that's why maps are another thing she really likes, because they've done so much travel and how land works, like why mountains are in certain places, or why lakes are in certain places, or why certain things grow in certain places in relative to each other. That's all stuff that that was her whole life. She very rarely had a lot of contact with the outside, with just society and how society functions. And then one day, her mom one night wakes her up and says, "You have to leave. You have to run." Something it doesn't explain what's coming, who's coming, the circumstance of it. Just you pack your bag, pack everything you need to travel a long time, and you're gonna go. So, and more importantly, her mother hands over, Nephron, Nephron was originally her mother's familiar, and that gets given to Aza'Ley. The intention was always to pass along this familiar and giving her full access to magic, but it's now being done really early. She gives the familiar and says, leave. You're going to go south. You're going to go as far as you can.
Just get out of here, run and don't look back type.
Yeah, run, don't look back, and most importantly, you cannot draw attention to yourself. You must stay quiet. You must, above everything else I ever tell you, do not draw too much attention. And Aza'Ley, and she gives Aza'Ley no more instruction, no more time. She's like, you get out. So Aza'Ley runs. And that leaves her very much in this place where now she's not sure the direction, because there wasn't enough time to fully communicate that. She has Nephron, who is we have learned now is basically a archive of sorts. He's the one who's been keeping track of all the research, further explaining why to hand it to Aza'Ley for safekeeping.
You basically handed you her life's work, seems like.
Basically, yeah, and that's what I knew at the beginning of the campaign, that, she'd handed over to Aza'Ley her life's work and basically gone, you have to go. And so Aza'Ley was stuck there going so by the time Aza'Ley starts the campaign, that is kind of her goal. She wants to know what happened to her mother, but part of her is gone, it's been so long, she's probably dead. Do I dare hope that there is an alternative? Is that something I should? And her goals eventually become, I want to figure out where I should go from here. Should I be finishing this research? Should I be where do I fit into this world I've been just suddenly thrown into? Because she doesn't She hasn't spent enough time around people to have any idea of how all of this is going. So anyway, that's her wants, and that's why I referred to a lot of it just comes down to she was lonely. She wanted people but didn't know how to people.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was gonna say, spoiler alert. The whole like lay low thing, it doesn't track for like more than a month.
No, it does not go well. Which her need though is to adapt into society.
Mm-hmm.
Like if her want is just to like find a little spot, but her real need is to actually to not lay low. Because her whole want was, I might meet a few people. I'm gonna lay quiet. I might grow things, but her need is no, you shouldn't be quiet. You need to explore all of this in full. You need to explore what happened to your mother. You need to actually kind of become an adult, and that leads me into the arc that eventually. So I let the arc sort of form itself over the first. So I always use the first 3 sessions to formulate what an arc might look like, because I think that's better once I've talked to the other PCs to go, okay, this sounds like, and also getting a feel for how the character's playing to go, this is the direction I want to go.
And just for my sake, your first 3 sessions, did they end like after we got out of the Molten Lord's territory, or okay?
Because my first 3 sessions was the 2 in the Molten Lord territory and 1 at the actual hold.
Okay, cool.
And anyway, so over the course of that, I decide, you know what? I want to. So I've played lots of characters, and one of my more recent characters was also sort of this naive character who'd been kind of hurt by the place that they lived, and that made them very shy. And then their character arc was learning to be brave and learning more to, I really want to take leadership and be this front and center and say screw you to the people who hurt me. But or at least I think hers was, she was also a kind character and was like, I want to prove that kindness does have a place in the world. But with Aza'Ley, I decided I want to have a naive character again, but different. I want her to actually feel that weird space that I think a lot of us feel when we are young adults entering the adult world for the first time. In a more magical sense. Like I really wanted her to not be annoying, but to feel like that middle ground between she is old enough that she is an adult, but she's young enough that she doesn't feel fully like an adult. She hasn't been in the world of adults long enough to really kind of grasp how all of these new things work. And I kind of wanted the allegory to some degree be that to be those first times that you enter the adult space. Going, like, for us, it's going to higher education, maybe visiting a new country, traveling alone, those things that your parents can give you advice, but they don't navigate it with you anymore.
Yeah, like it's the next natural step, but it's still a step into unknown, right? It's not like they were Fausted into something beyond their depth. It's a natural next step, but it's a scary one nonetheless.
Yeah, and then there's other things that kind of come along with that as you start to go in there, which is the going from high school to university in particular, the social dynamic is incredibly different. Like I don't know if you'd agree with that, but like when you first enter, it is so daunting. It's you having to learn responsibility alone. It's having to grasp how to make new friends in a very different way now. How to balance social and responsibility, because now you have to take care of things just by yourself. It's there's a whole section of your life just having to balance all that out, and on top of that, there's some physical changes that happen as you start to get older through your 20s, and you're just navigating it all. So anyway, so Aza'Ley is supposed to be that space. She is this, but pushed to like a magical, fun extreme. So she's a literal fish out of water in this case.
Yeah, and can I say what a very beautiful irony or a juxtaposition. I'm not sure which the right word is in this case, but it's like the mother gave her a task, and it was do this, be safe, lie low. And what a fascinating kind of twist where it's like, yes, her first steps into becoming her own person is to it's to literally push that instruction aside. The one instruction the mother gave, the only thing that could bring her the next step into her journey is to then push that aside and say, no, I am going to stand out. I think that's a really cool little tidbit in there that really just kind of makes it go, what a nice little poetry there is in the character's backstory. A little short side bit, and I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit here. So again, maybe just doubling back on a comment made earlier. For me, very often when I make characters, one of the things that makes them like fun to or easier to play is to kind of identify little bits and pieces that at least I can see in myself, right? Like it makes it much easier to play a character when you can relate to them in some way. Especially when I'm DMing, I'll make PCs out of just like, what's a singular character trait? All right, I'm going to turn that trait up to 11, and that'll be a PC. I'm curious, do you see any of yourself in Aza'Ley? Do you feel like that comes through? Does that make her easier to play? Does it make it harder? Or is this someone who you don't feel very connected to, and that's kind of what makes the character interesting to play? Where would you say you fall on that?
Definitely. So her anxieties when she encounters something new and has to push through them, I think that comes from me, or at least that's a natural thing that kind of will leak into certain types of characters I play, at least when I play them toward the little more innocent side. Otherwise, though, I wish I had her positivity because, or her ability to even, despite like initially going, like a good example is we met that dragon just the other day, and she's initially going, "Oh, I've never met a dragon. Everyone's told me they're scary. That is the only instructions any of you have told her about dragons so far is, oh, they're manipulative, they're scary, they are power hungry, like they." She's not been told nice things about dragons, and here we are in front of one, and she this, or at least one in human form, and she's just like, I don't know about this. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm nervous to be here, but then sees a fox. Like the dragon just had a pet fox, and her focus swung to that, and then completely forgot that there's who that is in the room. There's only the fox now, because she was like, oh, it's a special, because she went, that's a fox. That's a magical fox. That's a special, rare magical fox. Okay, I'm now going to go and like hyper focus on this fox, then talk only about the fox. And then even when the dragon is going, hey, who wants to hang out? She's like, me. Wait, should I be doing that? And then proceeds to the beginning is being alone with the dragon for a bit, and the dragon her first questions. So where'd you get the fox? Never mind anything else in the world. I wish I had that swung positivity in face of adversity.
Yeah, just being able to, even in those dark moments, just still find something to be joyful about. I think that's something I guarantee we all wish we had. But yeah, that's really cool, and I think it's a really cool thing. It's a really good dynamic that plays into. Like, I obviously don't know if the positivity came directly from the idea of the character, or if, like you said, you saw how the rest of the group was kind of functioning, and you saw a niche and you played into it. But I think it fits very, very well with the dynamic we have, because we have several very like stoic characters who are just about like, here's how we get the job done. It's very nitty gritty. We have Craftworm is not like innocent in the traditional sense. He's more just like, I don't know what the right word is for his brand of innocence, but it's just very matter of fact, very unbothered, I guess you'd say. If there's something in your way, it's, even if it's insurmountable odds, it's to Craftworm just, oh well, we'll deal with it. And then obviously Adia is all over the fucking map. But her joy comes from a much more like sinister place, so it fits in very well, and it shines much more brightly in comparison when there's a character who has that level of joy amongst characters who don't, right? So I think it's a really cool trait to have, and I don't know if it was And like I said, can I ask, was it a deliberate decision based on what you saw, or did you have that idea kind of homegrown?
That was always there. That was very deliberate. Actually, that kind of leads nicely into about why I picked her name the way I picked it.
Okay, so then that's what we'll do. We'll lead right into the next question. How did you pick her name? Because for me, I picked random on the fantasy name generator until I got the name I want. And I love Adia. Manson is really funny in the context of the setting, but that's how I get my names. How did you get yours?
So I love etymology of names, and I love I love finding like little things to I don't know how to put it. I like learning what names mean, but I also like making little hints about the character within the name. Sometimes it depends. If I'm in a real rush to make a character name.
It's like a little puzzle, like to hide little secrets in there.
Yeah, I love hiding little secrets, and sometimes I won't have. There's on a rare occasion I will go. I was in a rush. I picked a name that I was like, that sounds cool. That sounds familiar, and a good example would be I have an evil character named Millicent because she's a tiefling and it sounded like Maleficent, and then I thought that was really funny. So there's nothing behind that. It's Millicent sounds like a really cool, name. But the for Aza'Ley, so Aza'Ley Roderon is the full name, right? So in character, I hinted at it a little bit because she's not going to know the full meaning because that doesn't make it. It's a very meta meaning. But she knew that the way her mother got her first name was from Aza'Ley, like the flower.
That's right. That sounds like something that's come up before.
Yeah, that's come up before. I said that just as a kind of offhanded comment, but the rest of it, there's no context in which I could ever say it. But anyway, so there's Aza'Ley is where Aza'Ley comes from, and then Roderon is actually the species of flowers. And the thing that's really important about azaleas and the Roderon sort of species of plants is that they aren't edible. They're poisonous. Like you cannot consume those, or you shouldn't consume those.
Okay.
And that's important because it's not supposed to be something like, oh, she's secretly bad, or it's supposed to be like, oh, she's venomous, or not venomous, poisonous on the inside or something. It's supposed to be like azaleas and a lot of Roderon like plants. It's supposed to be she's a nice thing. She's supposed to be a positive, nice thing that's added to the world. But if the world should choose to consume that, decide to destroy the nice thing that's been presented, then there's going to be a bite back because she has some incredible abilities and incredible feats that I've been building over time.
Yeah.
But they could be twisted very quickly if if push ever came to shove. Like, I think control water alone, never mind my feats, so just control water as a spell, it's a 50 by 50 foot space that you can raise the water level by 10 feet. So above the head of pretty much all medium creatures.
Yeah, so, and that's a problem for like most anybody. 10 feet of water going up is like half of a city.
Yeah, so even in a 50, and in this city that we're currently in, where it's literally on top of the water, like the water level is right below our feet all the time, that would be incredibly devastating to a 50 by 50 foot space.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, there's also, she does have, like, her feet chain in order to create whatever plants she wants to. And so far, she's done it for, like, cutesy things. Like, she's like, I'm gonna create mangoes where there shouldn't be mangoes. I'm gonna create these flowers that people like. I'm gonna create for especially, like, that dragon and the fox. She's like, oh, it's a magical fire fox. It can eat and will like these type of fire berries. I'm gonna just magically grow those fire berries to appease this creature and be friends with it. But if you think about it, there's nothing that says she's limited to those nice things. She could be growing some incredibly deadly things.
Yeah.
She could grow a bunch of nightshade if she wanted to, and she could. There's a whole bunch of very nefarious things that could be done with these abilities that, she would never think to. as she stands right now, she would never think to abuse them in that way, but she could. And that's the kind of hint behind her name, that I presented this nice, sweet thing. If you... I will adapt to whatever life throws, but if the world ultimately decides to eat and chew up this nice thing, you may not like the bite it has.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool, the way it kind of fits into the whole, I don't know, there's an element of this nature theme that Aza'Ley has sort of been built with and has definitely grown into more of as the campaign has gone on. But it plays into the idea that nature is, just in general, nature doesn't have a malice to it. It simply is. It adapts to what it is around, right? So when you see something that is poisonous or something that is like, some vicious creature, that there isn't some malicious entity creating those things for the exact purpose of, you say, hurting you or poisoning you. It simply is. Like, they evolved to have those things because of their environment. So it's really cool that a character that is literally, starting out as basically close to neutral and is then being shaped by its environment, that has the potential to then swing one way or the other with this great power she has, is the nature-themed character. It fits very, it's a very perfect little parallel lead-in. So that's really cool. I love that. That is sick. So very cool.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you've realized, but also there's some things that, like, the party's been shaping about her the whole time.
No, I think she's definitely picked up some good and bad habits.
Yeah, I also wanted to make sure that was in a way where she didn't feel like that. That's always been like a little anxieties. I didn't want her to feel like a child, like it's babysitting her. I wanted her to feel like she's still an adult. You can leave her alone and she'll be fine. Like, you can abandon her you can leave her on the corner and she won't do anything that's too foolish. She understands. But there are certain things like power struggles, the dynamics of a court, all those like finite society things that she has no clue, and she's just been watching all of you and going, oh, this is what it works. And most of the time, you guys are actually very diplomatic. You choose diplomatic routes. You're kind to people who are actually struggling, and for the most part, and that's all the things she's gone. Oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah, and I think it definitely does come through. She definitely. The way she's played her, in testament to you as the one playing her, you've done a very good job, you're right, she doesn't come off as just a child. Like, obviously she is young, and she may have kind of slipped into the role of, like, little sister in a couple places, but she's still an adult, and I think it definitely comes through, because you're right, when, she has to be, like, left alone, the fear is not, oh, she's going to do something. The fear is never, oh, she's going to do something foolish or stupid. We know she is responsible. It's more just the environment we're often having to leave her in is an environment that's like a really risky thing to leave anybody alone in. So it's more just the environment that we currently exist in. Like, we're currently infiltrating a dangerous city. And so it's like, damn, do we want to leave anybody alone here? I feel like that is where that kind of maybe hesitance from the party to leave Aza'Ley alone comes from. But I don't think it's ever come from a place of this person isn't competent or this person's going to do something stupid. It's only ever come from a place of, like, we don't want to risk someone getting hurt and us not being here. So I think that's come off very well. So the intention was well intended and it has been well executed. So good on you for that. Going forward, another question. Let's see here. We'll wrap up more of the character focus comments with a couple more questions here. So obviously, I think still a lot of campaign to go. A good chunk at least. I know from talking with Fen, both on the show and outside of the show, I think there's at least 2 more arcs in mind. 2 more sections of story to play. So there's still a good amount of story to go. Do you have any hopes for the character? Like, are there still little on your story checklist, are there bits that haven't quite been checked yet that you're looking forward to going forward that haven't quite been addressed yet? I'm sure the mother coming up is a big one, but I'm curious if there's something else on your to-do list for this character coming forward.
Yes, there are a couple. One is going to be her starting to voice the things that she can't quite. So there's a couple things that have come up that she's been grappling with a little bit. One of them is sort of cruelty for cruelty's sake. Like the villains we've encountered and the situations we've encountered where people have been so absolutely cruel. And that is something that she's not unfamiliar with death, right? Or even the idea of fighting for something, because the natural world is something she's lived alongside with for a very long time. And, a tiger fights another tiger for territory. That is not actually...
It's natural, yeah.
Yeah, that's not exactly an unnatural thing to do. So the idea of, these people are fighting to get land, that's not totally abnormal. So she's like, that's fine. But the idea of like that one fellow who decided, I'm going to create these robotic mockery of dogs and like take and like take the skin of creatures and wrap it around just for the horror of it, not because there was any mere purpose. Those are things that she's kind of had to go, I don't know this, I don't understand at all. I have no concept of why people do this. And also and that I think is going to lead into sort of as she gets a better look at this city and how hierarchies work. So, because that's something we haven't really touched on a lot. So why are some people who, why are some people on top? Why are some people not on top? Mm-hmm. In her mind, she's like, if I left, she's like, why does that make any sense? Technically, I could leave a lot of people out in the middle of the woods and they wouldn't make it. So is it power? Is it what? So that's something I want to touch on, at least with the party, because I feel they have some very different takes on what that should mean and what that should look like. And I'm curious to bring up that conversation because there are some party members I think have very different outlooks on it, and I want the drama. I want to push it to see
roleplay. Let's see.
Yeah, I want to see what you're all going to say and what parts she's going to end up deciding to, inherit. Or maybe she will take the route of, I hate all of it, and that will... Because the eventual choice she's going to have to make is, where does she want to fit? Is she going to stay with this company? Does she want to, go into the woods and never come out again? Mm-hmm. Does she want to settle? Does she want to settle and then wander and come back to a place? That's something that... sort of the whole becoming your own person, she has to decide eventually for herself, what do I want, or at least what do I want / need, where am I going, what kind of person am I about to be in full. So I want to do that. I'll also explore the whole mechanist god relationship, because the hint that Fen has led that, you, this very natural person, are related to the mechanist gods, these literally manufactured gods, is very, very interesting. And there is this, I've seen these threads that have been, connecting that she's tied to something that definitely isn't natural. For example, I've been told that all her magic has been working where she hears a somewhat not mechanical sound, but there's a rhythm in nature, and that is how her powers work. She hears the rhythm that everything has, and she can formulate it into she can hear what song and how each of them connect with each other. And I think some of the party members got a little nervous by the idea of, some of it gets silenced, but she's eventually going to learn and express that, no, that's normal. Things have part of the totality. It's sad when one little these notes stop because they're dead now. But in the totality of the song doesn't progress if all the parts are going at all times. Things have to stop. Yeah. That's very normal. Yeah, it's normal. It has to be there. So, but she's learning that I can add new parts or I can alter parts. And that sort of relationship, I think I'm very excited to explore and adapt into what I'm talking about, because I'm like, oh, I like this very strange opposite, because usually that's associated to computers, is associated to the most the most elemental nature sort of character of the party.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. Yeah, because Fenn's kind of been building up this sort of, I guess, resonance angle, and it's cool to see that it's kind of connecting to this sort of mechanical side, like you said, this juxtaposition of nature and mechanic, all sort of coming together. It's also fun to know that, when you first learned of this bit, outside of the hold, the first thing Adi does is she rips a fucking plant out of the ground, and you're like, oh, okay. But it seems like going forward, what we'll be learning is like that's maybe more of a natural thing than just, something that's not supposed to happen.
It's mostly because the way it was presented was, can you hear this? No. It's quiet now.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear this? Points at like just the grass. Yes. Rips it out. Now, how about now? No.
Oh man. Okay. We'll get to a little bit of that in a second. But so last thing I'll ask you that's directly character to wrap up this section is, obviously Fenn gave you something to learn about this character through the course of playing it. And that seems like it was a really cool curveball for him to give you. I wonder if there's anything outside of his influence that you picked up from the character that you didn't even consider or didn't know before you started playing her. Like, the example I've used, and I'll use it again, is Adia in dresses. It wasn't something I considered. She was just like some wearing rags vagabond for forever, and that was her entire thing. She was like this feral embodiment of just destruction. But then the second she got to a town, it was like, oh, what's she gonna do? Gee, I don't know. She's got money in her pocket for the first time. Oh, she's kind of an ex-noble. Oh, she's gonna buy the best shit this place has. She wants to live in luxury because she is prideful. She deserves that. She's gonna buy the best dresses and custom orders, and it led so beautifully into that answer that has not only since become a really core tenet of her character, but fits so beautifully. And then it's like, I can't believe I didn't even consider that before. It's like, it's like when you name your dog and it kind of feels crunchy for that first couple of weeks, and then like years later you go, how could this dog not be named what we name it? How could that not be Bowser? It's Bowser. Like, it feels so natural now. Was there a piece of Aza'Ley that kind of fit into that narrative that you didn't consider before, and then as you kind of came around to it, you're like, oh, that's so her. I can't believe it wasn't there before.
I'm not sure if there's something I can summarize as succinctly as that example. I do know that it's probably because I usually make a backstory that's more malleable. So as I see things, I go, that's there. That's just, I didn't necessarily, my idea was broad enough that I am always adapting it a little bit. So I guess the best thing I can think of that is I always had her be a little hyper focused. So especially to the things that she knows and she really likes, and when that thing comes up, that is all her thought process is only that thing for a little bit. Such as the whole, she has a map, and then Vince trying to bond with her goes, hey, well, like, that's a cool map. Where are the places you've been? And that sends her off on a tangent of, okay, let me discuss every single place I've been, every detail of what it was like, the terrain there, and how you get through it, and all of what plants are there, and what animals are there, and this long discussion of it. And then I, ask, how long are you gonna let her go? And they went, what was the maximum length you will let her go to?
Yeah.
He went, well, the end of watch, maybe? And I went, okay, if you don't stop her, we're going
go.
that's 2 hours. Here you go. She won't stop until she has nothing left to say, if that is what you're going to allow to happen. So that was already there. But then when I started learning about this, like, oh, this is how the magic's is going to be described in this world. So with the whole, oh, you can hear things? Because that was hinted at before she could do it so she could do it with everything. Like there was a little bit of, oh, you can hear these. You can whenever you use magic, you hear this little song. You can hear things once in a while.
Mm.
So I then adapt, and then as I got all this new information, I decided, what if that's part of the hyperfocus? That technically speaking, it is because she is hearing all this information all the time because, that's something else that Fenn's been hinting at, and I'm pretty sure is going to come up is, for example, like, I don't know if you knew, with the fox that just came up, Fenn just sent me the information. There was no roll. He just went, here, everything to know about this fox, and it was in the paragraph about this fox. You just, you just suddenly know it. You look at this fox and you know.
Cool.
And as far as I know, Aza'Ley never met that fox before. She just knows.
But yeah, but that makes sense because she has this like connection. She just kind of, it comes to her.
Yeah, so I decided, what if that's the hyperfocus that's been there the whole time? She wasn't directly able to understand it before, but now she knows where it's coming from. But before, that was just when she looks at things related to nature, she has a flood of information, and that's why it's so hard for her to look at anything else, because that's just all there is right now.
Mm.
And I decided, that's gonna be there. So sometimes, when we're having like a breakfast discussion, and someone had asked me to make a plant or something, I have her lose track of the conversation, and sometimes she'll ask, what happened here, and you guys always answer her because I don't think you noticed that she hadn't been paying attention to chunks.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a little thing that I throw in once in a while, where if she got caught up doing one thing, then she misses what else happened.
Yeah, right.
I have to make this plant, and I need to make this plant in a certain way so it doesn't die because it doesn't belong in this environment, so I have to use magic to supplement what it's missing, and blah, blah, blah.
This is very important. It's crucial. We have to take care of this. Okay, so that's really cool. All right. This is why I do this, man. This is so cool. I love seeing those little angles, and I always kind of caught the nature vibes of the character, but feeling a little bit more of how they parallel in the idea of, like you said with the name of Aza'Ley, going both, that nature can go both ways, and that kind of lines up with the Mechanicus elements of the story, which I know we've kind of touched on the Mechanicus bit with the Devil Dogs, I guess, and I don't know if it'll be coming up this arc, or it may just be directly tied into your backstory. So it was one of the things that, like when I read that backstory doc myself, it was one of the things I really expected to be a lot of, but it wound up being less of an important element. But it's cool to see it kind of come back around even in the latest, because I think the most we had interacting with that side of the story was we found like a little orb or something in one of our really early expeditions that was effectively like a nuke of some kind, like a really, really powerful weapon.
Yeah.
And when we were doing the subterfuge in the south at Marsa Tech, we got it stolen from us, and they took it across the border. And after that was kind of the last we really interacted with that mechanical element of the setting. But it's cool to see it come back up now of all time. So it's really interesting to hear. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of really cool stuff coming out here, and stuff I hope we get to explore going forward. Taking a step back, though, this is more personal towards your opinions on the campaigns thus far. Favorite NPC? Really quick one to warm us up. Favorite NPC?
I think Adia's mother is really funny.
Is her stepmother?
Yeah, I think she's hilarious.
Really? You think she's funny? I wouldn't have been. I wouldn't have been my guess. What makes her funny?
So all of you had met her before, but you have to remember this is my first time. I have no idea who this is, and I don't know if I was expecting someone more hoity-toity or if I was expecting someone really mean, but we enter and her first line was like, daughter, So, your father screwed me over. I'm mad at him, so I've come to help you. Also, yeah, I thought about trying to kill you to get back at him, but then I realized he didn't care about you, so that's not going to work for me. So here I am.
Which is just so devastating for Adia. Like, fuck me, okay? But
yeah. It was just the bluntness and like the like
Mm.
just the it was just the and it was she said it in such a casual, natural way. Like this is a Tuesday sentence, not like a yeah. So I did think about killing you, but you know it's good for you that I didn't. I didn't do that. So
Yeah.
good for me.
You see where Adia gets some of that, just a little bit, even if it's just stepmother, you know.
Yeah, I was like, anyways, I was like, and then it was then on. It's like she would just say some of the most absurdist things and say it like it's a Tuesday, but then like spin it in a almost non-malicious way. Like she's like, oh look, yeah, you know, murder's fine. But I didn't do it, so clearly I'm okay.
I'm in
I'm
the
better than your
right.
father.
Cool. That wouldn't have been my guess for a favorite character, but yeah, she's a very unique brand of style that really kind of reflects the, I guess, otherworldliness of the character. Because elves, the way elves live, they play the long game is most of their vibe in the setting. Like they live way longer than everybody else. So when they talk about like, you know, that longevity really changes a perspective, and it's always cool in settings when you have characters that live that long, when you get to really feel how their perspective changes as opposed to people who live much shorter lives. So it's really cool to see that aspect of her come out, and it also makes it all the more compelling, her anger, that she's no longer willing to take the long game. She's like, I'm so petty about this and I'm going to do it now. It's another thing that elevates her her making this decision. So it's another really cool element to her.
But that's why that conversation was really funny, because it was clear that she had a long game goal and she's abandoned it. She's literally yelling at you, I had all these plans and none of them are going to work, so I'm doing the chaotic route of just coming to you now. Look at me. And then that's how she was talking about it, and I thought that was so funny that she's just sitting there venting.
Yeah, it's really
The first
cool.
she probably shouldn't even vent to, but there she is.
Yeah, but you're right, that is a really cool character.
I also like our biblically accurate Aasimar.
Yes, we do love Vasilios. He's my favorite personally. I remember he started out as a bit of a butt monkey, but he has really grown into a character, and I appreciate him very much. Okay, next one. Favorite campaign moment thus far. Bit of a chunkier one.
There's a lot of moments that I really enjoyed.
And it doesn't have to be the most like drama. It can just be the funniest. Just what's a moment that you really liked?
I'll say moments. I'll just say some moments that stood out.
Mm-hmm.
Like running out of spells and going, I don't have a strength score. You know who else doesn't have that strength score? That wizard in front of me. I'm gonna jump him and try to pull his fireball necklace off. I'm just gonna
Get him.
just jump on top of him and wrestle with him over his fireball necklace, because that's all he has, I've noticed, and he keeps throwing it at us, and I have nothing. So, you know, I could sit here and do nothing, or I could do this, and this is much better. So, and there's also the visual image of this, you know, small green girl jumping on this man.
Just absolutely fire out.
like-
Just give me it. Give me the necklace.
Yeah, like jumping on his back and like half choking him with it because she's trying to pull it off.
You can imagine like she's doing. She's just like, go to sleep. I'm so sorry. Just please stop. Go to sleep.
Because her whole plan was just kind of a give me it, and she's gonna run with it. That was her whole concept. Or she had nothing else in mind. She was like, I'm just gonna grab it and then run.
Okay.
I think another one was like the cleanse air situation, because I had written just a bunch of elemental spells. Like, I was just like, this is all elemental. I'm just gonna write them all down. And then I happened to have cleanse air as one of them. And then, you know, there's that ghost that pops up and goes, all right, so my major ability is I add smog to the whole playing field. All the characters are blind now. And
No, you
then
don't.
I go, no, I have this one niche spell that was only on here because it had the term air in it, and I wanted to have one example of every element in my prepared today.
Mm-hmm. Let's
So I
go.
decided I needed air to fulfill the air category in this level. And so that suddenly getting used was very funny. Otherwise, Yeah, I think just the roleplay talks and the especially the I'm gonna pull out. Can you hear this?
No.
That one.
Can you hear this? Oh, I thought you literally
Yeah.
were asking me if I could hear this.
No. I mean your grass statement with
Yes.
audio going.
Can you hear this?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Aza'Ley going, hey! Aza'Ley opening the door and going, I think I'm hearing things. I think because she had just woken up that morning and gone, wow, my powers changed because I had gotten this because this feat had gotten added. And I was like, this sounds like a weird feat. Can we just use this? And Ben's like, yeah, this is how this is gonna work. And I'm like, okay. And then so I'm like, okay, well, how is this gonna happen? I guess because clearly she hasn't had it all this time.
Yeah.
I guess she's just gonna hear it. It's just gonna happen. So then the first reaction, I think you're hearing the plants.
I think you're hearing the plants is a crazy sentence out of context.
Yeah.
The plants are talking to you. What?
The plants are talking to you, or at least making sounds, because it's not exactly a verbal conversation. So, hey, we need to test this. Can you hear this? Points at grass.
You know what you should do? If you ever decide to, as a character, like try to directly communicate and it starts talking to you, like if Fen is actually foolish enough to have a plant talk to you, I beg you, ask the plant for its name. I think it would be so funny to me if you do that.
I would do that for you. I don't think it's going to happen, though, because of the way we've discussed it, that plants don't have... Like, they don't have personalities like that, but but there is magic in all of these things. Oh, but she can grab memory from them. Weirdly, the plants, through whatever magic flows through them, that magic has memory, not the plants themselves.
Okay.
So, weirdly, I can attempt anyway. I think I only tried it once, and that was back at our homestead there. But I thought about it a couple times where I'm like, I should try this again. I think it's because it is part of the feat. There is a sentence there that says how to do it, where you can gather information. So, and that's and Fen's now described it as, oh, you're gathering information from the plant, not by talking to it, but because there's like this inherent memory that's collected there, but you have to like hunt for it.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, we may not get it, but I know it'll just we give Fen a little bit of shit just because we like asking him for names, and that's entirely my fault because I ask him for names and I make his life miserable. But that's really cool, and if it ever comes up, it would never not make me happy. Anyway, last campaign related question, and this will be a quick one because I think we have character telephone coming up. If you had to describe, and I've asked everyone who's been a part of this campaign, what would you say this campaign is about, right? Bonus points if you could describe it in like a sentence or like 4 words if you're really crazy. What would you say the campaign's like major theme is, if you could even guess? There's a lot of stuff in the air.
See, I feel like I'm at a disadvantage somewhat because I'm new to the campaign, and there's there is like arcs of information that I don't have. So I'm very much based on only 2 arcs, I think. I think that's all I've been part of. Where it's going, I think, is where I'll go with it. I think the place it's going is a fractured world finding unity of some kind.
Cool. Okay, yeah. Very interesting.
And when I say unity, I don't necessarily mean always in the positive. Like I think there's going to we're working toward some big events. It's either going to be, the bad guys take over everything. Everyone decides to use their magical nukes and we see what happens. We end up in a place where our group wins, and the nation we're currently a part of expands. Whatever it may be, that's what it feels like. It feels like we are in a fractured world of a bunch of pieces, and it's going to become more unified in some way, but by something or it's by some circumstance.
Cool. Okay. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see where it goes. But before we see that, we're going to do a fun little section that I am trying for the second time with better questions. We're going to call it, or as it is still being called, character telephone. Miss Brush, I'm going to have to put you on hold for just a second. I have to call a very important guest. Hello? Anyone there?
Hello?
Oh, hello. Is this Aza'Ley? Aza'Ley Rotoron?
Yes.
Oh, good. I was hoping to get in contact. Would you happen to have a moment to answer some questions for me? My name is Miguel Bloomberg for the Just an Excuse podcast, by the way. Very happy to get in contact.
Okay.
Oh,
I think that's okay.
oh, fantastic. And don't worry, it's perfectly safe. I don't think any of your companions would have any issue with this at all. Okay. So, a couple fun questions. Hold on a minute. My question list has apparently fallen off my mystical desk. Who would you say of the party you are currently in is most likely to get you killed?
What?
You travel with some colorful individuals. I'm sure one of them is a little riskier than the others. Who do you think's really gonna get you in trouble in the end?
I don't think anyone would do that.
I hear Craftworm is a rather interesting individual. Hasn't he got you into fights before?
I think the other person started it first. I'm not sure I was paying attention. Let's see. I suppose it would be people who, Craftworm or Audia start fights the fastest, if that's what you mean.
Okay, got it. Craftworm and Adia. Good, we'll save that for later. Another question for you, if you don't mind. And we're going to be a little crazy with it. These are going to be off the wall. What is your go-to excuse when you get caught doing something you shouldn't?
Adia told me to say that she did it. Wait, I don't think I did that right.
So you're saying you blame Adia?
Yes, that's what I am supposed to say, yes.
Interesting. Okay. Who of your party do you think is the worst influence? Who gives out the most unsavory habits?
I don't think any... I don't think I'm the person to say whose habits are bad. What would be a bad habit?
A willingness to kill people, I think.
Everyone's been... I don't think anyone's... We haven't killed a lot of people that didn't attack us first so far. Everyone mostly wants to talk. That's been good. I think I would be told... I think jumping at things too quickly is you mentioned earlier, and other people mentioned is bad. I learned that from Craftworm and Adia, actually.
Craftworm and Adia again. Seems like we've got some usual suspects here. Another question. Who in your life right now would you trust to bail you out of jail, and who would probably be in jail with you?
I've never seen a jail before, but I know what that is. And I think that Samir would probably bail us out. And I think in with me would probably be Adia, Craftworm, and maybe Reverie. It depends what we were doing, and Vince would only be there if he was trying to stop it and then wasn't able to.
So Vince wouldn't be paying the bail. He would just be standing behind Zamir, shaking his head disapprovingly.
If he wasn't with us, then he's in with us. If he was trying to stop it and then ultimately was unable to stop it.
Okay. If you had to fight a copy of yourself, what's the best way to take you down?
Ooh, I'm not actually that good at fighting at all. I don't do it a lot, so you could probably overpower me. I'm very good with magic.
But it's a copy of yourself. Could you overpower yourself?
Probably. We're both the same, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Identical copies.
Okay, and I could maybe do that. I would probably have to use, I'd probably have to use magic that I don't normally use, but then wouldn't the identical copy be doing the same things as me?
Mm-hmm.
But then how would we... Can't really trick each other. We're doing the same thing. Can't I just talk to my identical self if we're identical?
Mm-hmm. You could.
Okay, then I choose that.
So you would talk yourself down.
Yes. I don't think it would take much.
Okay. A few more questions here. You're doing great so far. Let's see here. What's a fun one we've got on our list today? If someone wanted to bribe you, what would be the easiest way to do it? What's something that if someone handed it to you, you would ask no questions and look anywhere else?
Are they trying to bribe me to do something, or are they giving me something and then not telling me why they're giving me something?
They're trying to get you to do something. They want you to go. They have to pay you for pay you for a service, right? What would be the payment that would be easiest to accept that would get you to do that thing?
A rare map. Place I have not been. I would like that.
Okay, very good.
If they've told me something I've had not seen before, I might I'd be curious a lot, and I'd want to look at it, and I probably should not be following people.
True. 2 more questions, and I promise I'll stop wasting your time. What's the worst lie you ever told? Between 2 friends. Just you and me.
Oh. I don't think I've told a lie.
Really? Is that a lie?
No. Oh, wait, I told one lie. I lied about does a lie count if no one asked you?
A lie by omission? I guess so.
Okay. Adia told me to prank Craftworm, and I didn't tell, and I didn't say that I was the one to prank Craftworm. That was a lie.
Okay. There we go. You've mentioned, for our last question, you've mentioned that you're not much of a fighter, so I'll change this question as it is written slightly. Say, aside from you, the entire Fix'em Finis crafting company got into an all-out fight and brawl to the death. Who do you think survives or at least lives the longest? Who wins? Purely hypothetical. I have no mind powers to do such a thing.
Okay. Who of them? If we're all fighting each other?
Well, excluding yourself, if you don't think you want to be a part of that. So it's purely Craftworm, Vince, Reverie, and Nadia are fighting to the death. Who wins in gladiatorial combat?
I I'm not sure. It really depends, I think, on who started it and why. I think Craftworm would do very well. He's hard to hit and he hits hard back.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's very similar.
Mm-hmm. So then who has the best chances?
If Reverie very far away from everyone and no one can get up close, I think Reverie would very quickly take people out. Also, he's the healer and he can heal himself.
True. What if everyone is 50 feet apart? Equidistant to each other. Who wins there?
50 feet apart. Depends who goes for who, I think. If they're going for Reverie quicker, then other people get to go longer. Craftworm's very good. Craftworm's gonna be very good against Vince, I think, because he have the hits he can take. If Adia lasts a long time, she can hit very, very hard at the beginning. So if she gets in very quickly, she'll probably win, and she'll do really well. And
of course, Zamir's a bit of a wild card.
Zamir has a lot. Zamir would also last a long fight. Because he seems to have things that frighten people, and if he does that, I think if people are ganging up on him, that's harder. But if people are not, it's hard to get close to him because he can also hit you as you go by.
So it seems very. I suppose so, but it seems very situation dependent. Where if one thing tips one way, then it provides enough advantage one might clean house. Interesting.
Yes.
Well, Miss Rhodoron, thank you very much for your time. You won't remember any of this conversation, but it was lovely talking to you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for being on hold for so long. I hope it wasn't too disorienting.
No, not at all.
All right, cool. 2 more questions for you, and these are a little bit more broader in terms of like you as a player and just as what you enjoy about this game in general. What would you say, and obviously this is a personal question, if you'd prefer not to answer, then feel free, it's totally okay. What would you say is your biggest pet peeve or strength and weakness as a player, if you could mark it down? Like for me, I am a player that doesn't have very good patience. At a certain point, I love playing a button pusher character because at a certain point, I just want to start pushing the buttons and I don't want to think that much harder. I want to go and do it. I also find myself being a very poor combat character. I love roleplay, and combat is almost always just an avenue to add flavor to the roleplay. It's never just, oh, I rolled a 20 to me. It's, oh, I swung my sword and it got deflected. That's where I get joy from combat, but less of the mechanical side of that. Where would you say that lies for you?
Okay, I'll start with strengths and weaknesses then. I would say my weakness as a player is I don't detach from the game very well. Now, this hasn't happened a lot in this campaign in particular, but it has happened in others where I can be a little anxious about the things I say or the things I do, and that the only reason I feel that's a weakness is because sometimes it can bleed over. Like that anxiety, other people can feel it, and that's something I'm trying to work on for many years, but I'd say if I'm being very honest about myself, that is a thing. I am a little anxious when it comes to like a choice that could like kill the party, sort of.
Yeah, very, very much the same. For me, the decision that I made last session as Adia, I definitely took a couple minutes to really, pace that one out. I was very much. I'm not usually a person that likes to yank the narrative steering wheel very hard. So I definitely get that feeling of like, this could be a really bad decision. So I definitely I can connect to that level of like really being worried about that sort of thing.
Yeah. I can like really worry though. So sometimes I will second guess when it was something that had like a lot of consequences to it, and then sometimes I'll have to go to the DM and go, listen, I'm really, for whatever particular, I am anxious about the choice I made. And sometimes I'll just go, listen, it's fine. Like, yeah, bad things will happen, but like there's a separation, and and I'm like, okay, you know, it's fine. But yeah, I would say that quality is for some other players or DMs like that can, I understand where that can be a lot, which is why I try very hard to not make them manage it in any way, which if no one's felt it, then they this is like the first time it feels like the first time I'm like mentioning it, then I've done a good job.
No, I think you have.
Mitigate.
I think that's a big 2 thumbs up right there. You've done a great job.
Okay, well, I think in the past there's been other circumstances where I've done less well, but I've also always been very. I know from like years and years of playing. I've been playing tabletop games in general for, I think my count was like 17 years.
Wow, you've been playing it forever.
Yeah, so I've been playing since high school. So I think so very early on it was a lot worse. And that's mainly because I didn't communicate very well with players or with the DM and telling, this is how I feel. I just need to say it out loud. And then someone tells me I'm stupid. And then I go, okay. Like in the nice way, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't worry about it sort of way. And I go, yeah, okay. And then I move on with then I just move on from it. But in the past, I've never had a situation where I think like someone's dropped out of a game or something very extreme, or someone's come to me and said you've ruined something. I've never had that happen. Everyone's been a wonderful player. Everyone's been a wonderful DM. But I do know that that is something about myself that I acknowledge. It is there, and I'm responsible for my own feelings.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. And like I said before, I think kudos to you. It certainly hasn't like come through, and like you've said, you've never had anyone come up and question you in that way. And again, I can't imagine they would. It's been a really fun time playing alongside you. And I just, man, I think that is I'd rather have, like, as someone who's DM'd very infrequently, I can always, so as someone who has DM'd very infrequently, but has done it enough to understand what it means to be on either side of that screen, I think that it will always be, to me, a positive to have someone who is aware of, like, that their decisions have consequences and is, like, that level of, like, concerned versus someone who isn't. I think it will always be better to err on that side than it will be to have someone who just damns all consequences.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
without
I agree.
doubt. I think that's a better situation, because then you know that they care and they're actually trying, and they're trying to be self-aware of the fact that they're not the only one at the table.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the line that I'm very aware and I'm trying to be careful to toe is, I don't want other players to feel bad, if that makes any sense. Like they have made me anxious. Like it's their fault. Like, you know, like we had an argument or something, and I got anxious afterward about whether or not I should have done something. Like I don't want them having, like, because it's an important part. It has to happen. Consequences need to happen. I think some of the best things about role-playing games happen through a little bit of conflict, like controlled conflict.
Yeah, 100%.
But a little bit of conflict. So, and I don't really want that taken away. So that's why I want to, like, I try, especially now as, like, you know, more an adult, I guess, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be aware of where I sit. I want to make sure that my fellow player, my fellow GM know that, you know, no matter how I felt about something, I need to take time to go over here with it, away from the game, and then come back and go, yeah, I don't want the things to be changed in too much in service of possibly an irrational anxiety, if that makes any sense. But that's also why I'm like, I'm trying very hard to describe it as the weakness that I know it is, rather than going, it's not a strength. It's very much a, this could, I have seen it and through other players that in extreme ways, and like too much of it can really like slow a game down.
Mm-hmm.
Like where you have to assure the other player all the time or something like that. And you will not know exactly what I'm talking about, but I'm sure anyway someone else who's played with me might know like what I'm talking about. But I've never had a situation where I don't think where anybody's gone, oh yeah, this is so severe.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you?
Right, yeah. Okay. Last question, to wrap this up. Why do you love this game? Why do you do Dungeons & Dragons? You've done it for 17 years. I've done it for 2. And I've come to a place where this is like a part of my life. I love this hobby that we do. And I really think calling it a hobby is a fair way to put it. Because if you told anyone about a thing that you did, that you dedicated like 4 to 6 hours every single week, and you did it on a consistent weekly basis, it wouldn't just be some goofy thing. It'd be a hobby. And
Yep.
I think we get a lot of joy out of this, and there's so many reasons why I've come to love this game. I'm curious, why do you love this game? What makes this game so amazing to you?
So, a bit of honesty. D&D has been the least one I've played of all the TTRPGs.
Okay, well then let's say TTRPGs
So,
in
yeah.
general.
Yeah, it is more than note. It's more I wanted to put the note out there that there are so many things out there that I would love to share with a lot of you who've only like gotten the chance to see D&D. But D&D's fun too. I've 3.5 and 4 I both played like once or twice, but they weren't very long. 5th I only played for the first time like 2 years ago, and then I played all these others, which is like Pathfinder, Unhallowed Metropolis, Iron Kingdoms, Dresden Files, Dishonored, Vampire, Fate, Exalted. See, long list. And I love them because the same way that I loved Make Believe on the Playground. I think I did that for longer than an elementary school student maybe, would usually admit. Like I was, as long as I could, as long as I had friends who were willing to make something up with me, we were at it. And the natural progression was to something like this, where I was like, oh, this is a video game, but better for it, like what I mentioned about consequences. There's choice and there's consequences, and you learn a lot about yourself through those things, through that adversity. I'd say again within reason, since like my pet peeves stem into stuff like someone playing like a chaotic jerk, like a character who's so deliberately unlikable. They're building a character to completely go against the grain and to pick on the other characters, and I'm like, this is a group effort. If you're so inherently unlikable, why are you here? Go home.
Yeah,
Leave.
right.
Why would we want to like? Why would our characters hang out with you? You're not being edgy in the.
You're being such an asshole to be like immersion breaking. Like, why is this guy even here?
Yeah, why are you here? Why are we tolerating this behavior? So. And yeah, that's some of the stuff that you encounter in games. And that's also why it makes it so different than video games. It's so adaptive. And you get, and the stuff that and the way, and I love the way characters impact each other. That is my favorite thing that makes it so different than say like writing roleplay, like written like text-based role plays, or non-system ones, or any like traditional forms of media. This is the game, or like even board games. This is the game where you can make a character that is so succinctly impacted by other people, and adapting to that can be some of the coolest feelings, where you're like, oh, I see something here, this friendship that's blooming. I'm gonna go there. I want to see how that goes and what that turns into.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that's what really makes the world go round, I feel like I when I started playing it, I came from a place of like, I saw the stories kind of come from, YouTubers. I think the series that really got me into the game was Dingo Doodle's little series that she's still doing, which is really cool because it's been like 3 years doing that. Makes me feel old. But I started from that place of like, I just want to have these cool adventures and stories. And I came from a place of a creative sort of acting writer background. So I naturally leaned towards making characters that were a little more dimensional than I guess the average wish fulfillment character that everyone makes first, even though I still did that. But I totally agree with you that it's about, it feels so much more compelling to play the game when it's like characters interacting with each other, that I now feel that I approach the game with a different sort of love and appreciation. It's not just about playing this game with people. It's about like seeing how these characters evolve and impact each other. It's less about just going on the adventures. It's more about, who you adventure with. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And there's also like, I don't think you would have, because you haven't been playing that long, like, I mean, comparatively. So there's something else that happens eventually. And I hope you get to experience it, which is, you look back on old characters and you realize they are almost like this blueprint of how you've changed. Like I can look back at the characters the ones I wrote when I was 16, the one I made when I was 20, the one I like made at like the first little bit in university, and the traits that stayed, the traits that changed, and I can look at them sometimes and go, oh, I see roughly like maybe the media that I liked at the time, or the friends I had, or there's little bits in those characters that talk to me a little bit about just where I was. Like some characters a little, like there's some that are a little more depressing, there's some that are not, there's some like more recently, like the two characters that I made that are examples. The one I mentioned of like innocence, wanting to bring kindness in the world, versus Aza'Ley, who is just kind and is facing the world for the first time, and it's me looking, and that's an example of me looking back. Those are new feelings. Like the first character is an example of the world felt very, it's been hard the last few years, like especially like over COVID and stuff like that, and so I want to make a character who was in face of a very of a darker world and darker circumstance, found a way to be good in it. And then Aza'Ley is me looking back at this time and earlier in my adulthood and deciding to reflect back on it a little bit. And those are things that I wouldn't do with obviously the earlier characters, which were just exploring different things even quietly. And sometimes they were just, oh, I really liked that piece of media at the time, so I made a character solely based off that piece of media that was just that year of my life. Or sometimes they were, I feel really depressed, I'm going to make a depressed character. Or sometimes it's the opposite. I don't want to make a depressed character. I want happiness in pace of that. But yeah, that's something that... Also the reason I can't play some of those characters... Like, there's one character that I have remastered 4 times, but she changes every time I play her because of that phenomena where I have changed as a person. Me now is not me when I was 20. Right, those are two such entirely different people within different mindsets. So, but I could never play those characters the same way ever again, but they are interesting to look back at and go, huh. So that was me at X.
And it's cool to see that evolution, to look back and really feel how far you've come, right? I'm with you on that. Well, this has been an awesome time. I've really enjoyed getting the chance to have you on. I know this is kind of, you guys are taking a shot in the dark. Everyone who's been on before this, including yourself, taking a shot in the dark with me. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and doing this thing. It really means the most to me, and it lets me indulge in a very fun hobby. So thank you very much for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, glad to hear it. Like I said, you can check out FabledBrush's stuff. I'll have some of her stuff linked below. Please check her out. She does phenomenal work. And other than that, I think that's just about all we have time to talk about today. And I just want to say thank you all so much for coming. I hope you've enjoyed. I look forward to doing another one. And hope you have a wonderful next session. Woo!